Hello, hello. Harness my inner Pastor Jonathan. So good to see everybody today. We got a smaller crowd, it kind of looks like, but that's okay. You know, I'm actually really thrilled about today. I had it circled on my virtual calendar. I'm really excited to hear this testimony today. A couple thoughts, first of all, I always say thank you to the AV crew up there. They make this possible, right? So everyone that's watching even online, I see a lot of people probably haven't been able to come to church, COVID, illness, maybe they're traveling, maybe they live out of state, but we always welcome you here. If you happen to find our YouTube channel, praise God, I know there's a reason why you found us. So it all is due to that AV crew back there, Matt, Charles, Ed, Jacob, thank you guys. I'm really loud. I'll let you guys deal with it. I want to share a story that I came across recently. And let me give you a little context, a little background on this story. I hate changing light bulbs, right? Anyone with me? Whenever I see, one of the first things I do when I walk into anybody's house is I look up, right? And when I see light bulbs up there, the first thing that I think is, and I think I even say this to a couple of my friends when I walk into their house, I'm like, yeah, those light bulbs are going to be tough to change, right? They're way up there. And it's because these light bulbs die all the time, right? So as long as I can remember, I've always had to change light bulbs. When they go out, when they burn out, you got to buy new light bulbs and then replace them. I think if you go to Costco, there's a whole aisle of light bulbs, right? Because we all have this problem. And recently I came across a story of a light bulb called the Centennial light bulb. Has anyone heard of this? Nobody. I didn't hear about this either. Centennial light bulb is a light bulb that has been burning in a little fire station down in somewhere in California, in a fire station. And firemen are working 24 hours a day, so they need light. And they have this light bulb that has been on for, as you can guess it, over 100 years. That light bulb has never been turned off, right? In fact, in 2022, this marks the 120th year that light bulb has been on the whole time. Yeah, I'm seeing some confused looks out there, how is that possible, right? Because I'm changing out light bulbs all the time, me too. And it shows that these light bulbs, if you think about it, why would a manufacturer make light bulbs that will last forever? Because then we would never buy any more light bulbs, right? We would never have to actually keep buying light bulbs. And I thought about this in the context of our life, right? Where we look for things that bring light in our lives. Maybe we buy something new. Maybe we go on an experience, right? We purchase something and it brings us a little bit of light. But that light shines out, that burns out very quickly, right? But there is a light, and we can build, this is actually the Centennial light bulb, but there is a light that exists that can last forever, right? And that light is Jesus. So as I was thinking about this story, I wanted to start off our first song here with a song called Everlasting God, because God is our everlasting light. Okay, let's all stand here. We begin our praise. You are the everlasting God, the everlasting God. You do not faint, you won't grow weary. You are the defender of the weak. You comfort those in need. You lift us up on wings like eagles. Great is your faithfulness, O God. You wrestle with the sinner's restless heart. You lead us by still waters into mercy. And nothing can keep us with your love and justice, God of Jacob. You use the weak to lead the strong. You lead us in the song of your salvation. And all your people sing along. And remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Yeah, grace is enough. Heaven reaches out to us. Your grace is enough for me. God, I sing your grace is enough. I'm covered in your love. Your grace is enough for me. For me. Amen. All right, so this next song is our opening song. And it was new to me, which I don't know, many of you know. I hate doing new songs because it's just the amount of practice that goes into it. But I heard this song for the first time a week ago. And last week, several of you guys have also been at the West Coast camp meeting. And, you know, I was like on the fence. I was like, I really don't want to go to camp meeting. Oh, you know, the packing and living in like these basically prison cell dorm rooms, you know. But man, every time I go, and I think this is an opinion of many people here, right? Like every time you go to camp meeting, I'm blown away. Like the presence of God never disappoints me. He's always there. We had some awesome speakers this past camp meeting, and I just, you know, made such a huge impact on my life and practical ways that I can change. And one of the most practical ways is actually trying to live a life that was more like Jesus, right? As we really delve deep into the type of life Jesus lived from the very beginning to the end. And this song that we're going to sing is called More Like Jesus. It was the theme song for, I think it was a high school, right? Yeah, high school. And I'd never heard it before, and on Sabbath, as we were all worshiping together, they sang this song, and the words just really hit a nerve with me. I said, you know, and I just want to read this bridge, you know, that really impacted me. It said, Lord, change me like only you can, right? Here with my heart in your hands. Father, I pray, make me more like Jesus. This world is dying to know who you are. Couldn't be further. That's so true, right? Like this world is broken, so tragic, and is dying to know, literally dying to know peace. And Jesus offers that. And as I was listening to these words, you know, some of you may know the song. If you do, great, sing it with us. If you don't know, this is a new song to you. I just encourage you to read the words on the screen and see what they mean to you in your heart. Came to the world you created, trading your crown for a cross. You willingly died, your innocent life paid the cost. Counting your status as nothing, the King of all kings came to serve. washing my feet, covering me with your love. If more of you means less of me, take everything. Yes, all of you is all I need. Take everything. You are my life and my treasure, the one that I can't live without. Here at your feet, my desires and dreams I lay down. Here at your feet, my desires and dreams I lay down. If more of you means less of me, take everything. Yes, all of you is all I need. Take everything. If more of you means less of me, take everything. Yes, all of you is all I need. Take everything. Oh Lord, change me like only you can. Here with my heart in your hand, Father, I pray, make me more like Jesus. This world is dying to know who you are, so show us the way to your heart. Father, I pray, make me more like Jesus. Oh Lord, change me like only you can. Here with my heart in your hands, Father, I pray, make me more like Jesus. This world is dying to know who you are, so show us the way to your heart. Father, I pray, make me more like Jesus. More like Jesus. I pray, make me more like Jesus. Lord, means less of me. Take everything. If all of you is all I need, take everything. If more of you means less of me, take everything. Yes, all of you is all I need. Take everything. Father, Lord, as we bow our heads before you, I just pray that we can seek to be more like you, Jesus. Thank you for giving us the blueprints of what it means to have those spiritual blessings. Thank you so much for your presence. I pray this in your name. Amen.
All right, happy Sabbath, everyone. So I am not preaching today, just to get the honor of doing a quick introduction for the person that is speaking today. So if you're joining us online or if you're here in Rock Fellowship, you know that generally speaking, at Rock, we like to operate, at least our sermon schedules, through series. So a lot of series, generally from anywhere from 2 to like 6-part series. And even rarer than series that we do, every once in a while we'll have a standalone sermon. So if you're here last week, Ernie shared a message with us. And every once in a while, I or Pastor Chris will have like a one part where it's not a part of a series, we'll just do a sermon. But even rarer than that, something we very rarely have at Rock Fellowship is an actual testimony where someone comes and shares their story about how God has changed their life. Very rarely do we get that, aside from maybe like our weekend revivals or Cannon Beach. So I have the honor of introducing our speaker for today. He's Isaiah. He's sharing with us kind of a unique testimony for a lot of us. I think, generally speaking, a lot of us, we should do testimonies where we talk about how God has impacted our lives. A lot of us have more or less a similar upbringing, more or less journey to God. We were like, grew up in the church, were baptized in the church, went to an Adventist church or school, and then we ended up here where we are today. But Isaiah has been our church, part of our church for a while, and he's sharing kind of a unique testimony with us. So if you're joining us online, this is kind of a special treat for us as well. So here's Isaiah Black sharing our testimony with how God has changed his life through music and other things. So give me a warm round of applause for Isaiah, please.
Applause happens at the end, so can I just not do this? Can I not pour my soul out? I really strongly relate to the story of Jonah. Jonah was a prophet. We think of prophets as the people who tell us the future, but they also speak of the past and the present, because the purpose is to speak to us of God. God is all. All we have to do is mimic his behavior, be like him, and we're with him. All we have to do is simply surrender. All we have to do is open our arms, open our hearts, open our minds. And yet, this is the most difficult thing in the world of all time. But then once you do, once you get to that place, there's something about it it's more amazing than I think words could ever really come to. So that's why I'm going to put some of it into song. So if you don't mind, I'm going to play some music and speak my testimony to you. Is that okay? Okay, well, I hope it is, because you already clapped, so. Can I hear a little bit out of the monitor? I hear a sound. My soul is too bare. My spirit is broken. I need a repair. I want you to hear me. I want you to care. I want to be unafraid of what we are becoming. The art of forgiveness, patience of the saints, the faith of our Savior. Jesus, give me grace. Even when the name of God is denied, I will entrust Him with my future life. He reveals what He unseals in time. Thank you. I was brought up in music. My father is a professional reggae musician. He's played all around the world my whole entire life. He's just always been out on the road. My mother loves professional reggae musicians, and May 19th, 1984, it was my mother's birthday. And she and my father had been together for about 6 to 8 months, something like that. And they previously had lost a child. And it was a tumultuous time of whether or not they would stay together for those 6 months. And on her birthday, there was something different that year. And my dad, Vince, he asked her, what would you like for your birthday? You know, they're at this party. What do you want? Like, he hadn't gotten her a birthday gift yet. I mean, they're at the birthday party. It's like, what do you want? And she goes, I want a baby. 9 months and 10 days later, I was born. You know, my dad gave me to my mom, I guess, as a gift. And he's constantly reinforced, and both my parents have reinforced that I'm to be a gift to the world. So if I'm not being a gift to you guys, please let me know, and I'll modify. I'll give you a gift certificate, and you can come back later for it. And coming up in my life, you know, we having, you know, very different upbringing than, you know, all of my peers, most of the people I knew, with the exception of the folks in the music community that I was in, we had to find some groundation some way, somehow. And what's really fascinating is when I was 2 years old, my family, which is me, I have an older sister and a younger sister. I do have an older brother that's my dad's son, but he lived down in LA, and we would see each other from time to time. One of my earliest memories, in fact, like when I came online, was my first Christmas. I was like 10 months old, and I just remember very distinctly not being able to play, what's that game, Rock'em Sock'em Robots, because they were like, oh, you're too young. And I'm like, why am I too young? Like, I can do that, what they're doing, you know? And so my mind was very active and aware very early on. And I remember at 2 years old, 2 very significant events happened that year in my life. One, we went to Jamaica. And this sparked in me quite an explosion of world traveling understanding and a little bit more understanding about where my dad's music comes from and about where my mom's fascination with reggae music and Jamaican culture and everything. And I was like, I don't get it. It's really hot. There's kids who are trying to take my t-shirt from me because they don't have a t-shirt. I don't understand what's going on here, and the beach is fun. That was it. And yet it put in me this idea that I could do that. I could go and travel the world. I could go and get on a plane. I could go and be amongst a different culture of people, and I just never forgot that. And also when I was 2 years old, we got a knock on the door, you know, and this lady, you know, just imagine like the most late 60s-ish looking middle-aged lady with like the polyester whole entire jumpsuit and the sensible shoes and a very nice hairdo is, "Hi, I'm from the Adventist Church. Would you like to stop smoking?" For the older folks in here, they get that joke. It's not a joke, I mean, but they understand that. And my mom was like, "No, I don't want to stop smoking, but could you tell me about Jesus?" And so they started doing Bible studies. I remember sitting there. So I come from a place called Santa Cruz, California, and there's a theme park like right there. It was like right over there from where I lived, right next to the beach. I lived right by the beach, and I just remember sitting there and smelling the wafting waffle cone scent and seeing this lady come in my house and talk to my mom from this book. And I was like, "What is that? I don't know what that is. I don't understand this. I'm 2." And yet that held a very deep impact because we then started going to the Adventist church. My older sister was 5 years old, so she was right there ready to go to the local Adventist school. And so I went to the preschool, and so we started going in this track of Seventh-day Adventism and growing into this church and into this community, really. I mean, it was a community of believers. And my mom, who was a faithful person but didn't quite know how to live into her faith, was very intrigued by vegetarian message, by the prophecy message, by just so much of the way that this lifestyle was. And it was very copacetic with reggae because they're vegetarian, they believe strongly in God and very strongly in prophecy, just totally different interpretations. But in either case, I'm growing up as this kid who doesn't know anything, and I'm like halfway, going to church every Saturday, which is like weird to everybody I know except for the kids in the church school. And I'm going to reggae shows. My very first concert I ever went to, I think it was when I was about 2 or 3, and it was Ziggy Marley, Bob Marley's son, and we went backstage and we met the band because my dad knew, they were in the same circles and stuff. And so, very early upbringing age is like concerts and church, and then like Steve Urkel. It was Michael Jackson. That was my thing. Michael Jackson was my jam. When I was 5 years old, I got a tape of Michael Jackson and just started dancing and doing all these moves. And my mom would put on like puppet shows and have me dance like Michael Jackson, and all was well in the world. It was the 80s. But anyways, whole different time zone. And then through my upbringing, something peculiar started happening. I started acting a little frenetically, a little more wild than my peers from time to time. I started, my desire to do fun things was always more active than my desire to do anything like where I have to sit down and do anything like that. And I would get in trouble a lot. I went to the principal's office when I was in kindergarten. I don't know how that happens, but I was in the principal's office. And, around that same time, I started facing a little bit more of this thing called abuse, trauma, and things that cause a person to experience life differently. And for someone who would come to find later on that they're neurodivergent, like myself, that would play a very big key role in how I would live my life and sort of the path I would take, particularly with music. Because you see, trauma is a very interesting experience we go through. If you don't know what trauma is after you go through some sort of an incident that brings you, pain or sadness or despair, anything that brings you down, and your body keeps a memory of this. Your cells, your brain keeps a memory for survival. And when your brain can't turn that off, we call that trauma. We talk about it in this church. I mean, it's been spoken about right here. It's something that can make you doubt, as this last series has spoken to us of. It can make you doubt. It can make you constantly loop and do these things. And especially when you're somebody who's neurodivergent like myself, you will tend to start looping on things. And you'll tend to start getting your mind into places where it gets stuck and you don't know how to get out. You don't know how to back your way or push through. Yet when you have a community of believers, folks who really want to help, God knows how to speak through those folks. So I thank God. If I was in maybe the public school system, they would have written me off and I would have been in like secondary learning and all these things. But they really tried with me. I used to get a lot, he's very bright, but he doesn't apply himself. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I've heard about applying for jobs, but like, I don't know what it means to apply myself. And so then I was like, do I have to like get a job with myself? Like, I don't know how that works. And so growing up, my perspective was very much, I had a very big passion for, like I said, music. I have very big passion for extreme sports and just doing anything active and fun. And thank God I live by the beach and by the mountains where I could go climb and I could go play at the, do all these kinetic activities, skateboard, ride my bike, all these fun things that I could do. And yet, sometimes I would go to church and they'd say, oh, no, don't go and do those things because Jesus isn't there. And it was like, what? I don't get this message. I don't understand why some people would say God is all over nature and I need to experience it. And then these folks are telling me that maybe he's not there. I don't understand. So what I'm trying to paint a picture for you right now is, as a kid, your formation, the way that your brain is formed, is so critical. And the community that's around you, your parents and folks who are there for you, to be able to form that with you and not do it through an extension of that trauma, but to help break that down. For me, I had those great influences. My grandmother, I had an uncle who would always try to explain the world to me. We had great resources who would do this for me, and that would help my brain to start figuring out what this world was, because it's like a little philosopher in there. It's always been like, who am I? Why am I here? And what's life all about? And why is there people? And why is my hand that shape? And why hand? I would just go into those things, and I didn't understand that. I was just like this little existentialist. And, what's really fascinating is one thing that later on I would come to find in the Bible is it really talks to us about how God has a plan for us. And each one of us, the Lord made each one of us for himself, even the wicked for the day of judgment. And what's really fascinating is underneath that simple Bible verse, that proverb, is this understanding that God, each and every one of us, is an answer to a question about God. Every single one of our stories helps to bring light and clarification to others, to each other, to ourselves, to reality, into fruition, the image, the express image of God. And so that people can understand, outside of nature, outside of the written word, we have each other. And we have an understanding of God's true nature in each other. That's why it's critical that we are here in community and we are sharing time together. And this is amazing that we each and every week try to do this. It's an anomaly. But what God is wanting us to do is to understand that we are being just like him. He made us to be together. So in a family like mine, that when your dad is on the road, however many months out of the year, and coming back, and he's got trauma. He's a black man who was brought up in the South in deep racism, in the South Side of Chicago in deep racism in the in the 50s and 60s, during one of the most tumultuous civil rights times of our life, comes over to California, where my mom was brought up in a sleepy little surfer town, and the daughter of a doctor and kind of a latchkey kid, which means she was just able to just come and go as she pleased because dad was busy and mom was busy with the house. And she had 4 older brothers. That oldest one was 10 years older, so he's ready to go out and, go explore the neighborhood, and she's 3, and it's like, bring old Sally along. And so, you kind of, the way I was brought up was so like, who do I trust? Who do I know who to follow along with? Because sometimes they don't give me the right advice, or sometimes they neglect me, or sometimes they don't treat me the way I ought to be because my brain is going all these different directions. And how do I find God in all this? How do I find meaning? What do I do? And time goes on, and you go to school, you do your extracurriculars, and these are just things that go into your brain. And you might think about it, you might talk to your friends about it, you might not. But then there comes a time where you hit a thing called puberty. And I don't know if any of you have been here through puberty yet, but it's kind of emotional. There's kind of a lot that goes on during puberty. And, that's where I wish I knew that Bible verse, Jeremiah 29:11. I know the thoughts I have for you and the plans I have for you, not to do evil, but like for a good future. Like, I wish I knew that verse and had like memorized it back then and was like, no, this is going to be okay. I just need to get out of my feelings. It doesn't matter if I have buck teeth, that doesn't matter. Like, I'll be okay. Everything's going to be fine. But again, the reeling and the not being able to find the answers and trying to seek God and not understanding Jesus and who Jesus, what was it, a couple weeks ago, Chris, he said something along the lines of like, I wanted to become Jewish, or should I become Jewish? Like, he was like, I don't know this, and I was the same way. I was like, I don't get how Jesus and God have to do with one another. Like, how is he his son? Because he's human. And like all the explanations I would hear wouldn't quite do it, wouldn't quite bring it to bear for me. So get into high school, and I had been playing music for a couple of years by that point. My dad had gotten me a guitar and a bass, and it was a time where I went to a public school for the first time in my life. And it went from like, bringing in the sheaves, to like, welcome to the jungle. Like literally, like, we're going to concerts. Like I've met Slash a couple times. It's like one of those things where it's like, it was a totally different place. Like I remember the first day of school, a cheerleader was like cussing out a football player. And I was like, what is this place that I'm in? This is so crazy. And so shortly after getting to high school, I tried to do football for social stuff because I don't know anybody there. I tried to do go hang out with the party kids, and that didn't yield. And then I found this group who liked music. And it turns out that one of them was pretty well connected with a instrument company. His dad was the president of it, so that's pretty good. And so we formed a band, and we just started playing at the school. We started playing shows. We started doing, the whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle. And that was like totally idealized for me in the early 2000s. I was like, we're gonna change the way music is, and we are gonna be the very number one-est band. And I had all these designs for how we were gonna just get in there and just rip through the music industry and just had these grand designs about life and so many things I didn't know, but so many plans that I had that never came true, but so many thoughts and feelings, no action, but a lot of things. And so every so often, we would, if we practiced hard enough and we played our music and we put ourselves out there well enough, the instrument company would send us to a place like Japan, or it would send us to Sweden, or it would send us to Germany, and we'd play festivals, or we'd play guitar shows, or we'd go to LA and we'd play this, convention show for the evening. And it was a chance for me to get out and see the world. You remember, go back to 2 years old, Jamaica. It was hot and a lot of poverty, and it wasn't very fun, but the traveling part was great. So when I got to go to Japan for the first time, all expenses paid to play a show, and it blows your mind. You go, this is what I want, and the devil's also going like, yes, this is what I want, because it pulls me away from the world, and it pulls me away from God, and by 18 years old, I'm really sitting there, and I'm really contemplating what I want to do with my life for 6 months. I'm 18, literally like the month after my birthday, March 2003, 18 years old. I go 6 months, and I'm like, these repetitious thoughts are just in my head of, what does God want for your life? Or I'm sorry, what does Jesus have to do for your life? And what does Jesus have to do with your life? And do work for God. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I wasn't studying my Bible. I wasn't like steeped in prayer. I didn't have a religious friends. All my friends were like worldly. I had a few friends from back in my Christian days, but we didn't hang out. And I'm just like, why am I thinking these thoughts? And like Jesus, like, what does that have anything to do with anything? Like I always cared about God because God's God, like it's God, but Jesus, that's God's son. I don't get it. And at that point, for 6 months, I contemplated it. I thought about it. And in the very middle of those 6 months, like almost smack dab, I go over to my guitar player's house, and he's holding 2 prototype basses for me. And he's like, one of these is yours, pick one. And I'm like, that one? And so it's like the devil just pulled me right away. And he's like, here you go, here's your future. And it's like, that's my sign. We can follow false signs and think we're doing what's right. There's a way that seems right to a man, but its way is death. When a little trouble come my way, once again I forget to pray. Failure is my name. Rose, if by any other, still the same. My spiritual alarm, snoozing to the weekend. Time's running down to none, feeling like a tick-tock atom bomb. I need a little faith in the morning. I need a little hope in the night. I need a little love to continue keeping up my eyes as I look to the light. Ba 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 da ba 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 ba. Oh, so comfortable is my path. Broader the better is where I'm at. There's a way, the way that seems right to me, but the end is death. My spiritual alarm, snoozing to the weekend. Time running down to none, feeling like a tick-tock atom bomb. I need a little faith in the morning. I need a little hope in the night. I need a little love to continue keeping up my eyes as I look to the light. You know, I just became a dad recently, and one of the things that I've really learned is the way that we can encourage our children more than we discipline, more than we punish. We think of discipline as punishment, but discipline is encouragement just as much as it's punishment. Being able to give positive, reinforcing feedback is just as important as giving negative, reinforcing feedback, because limiting behaviors and increasing and encouraging behaviors, all in balance, is super hard to do when your child is screaming from the toilet and you're way downstairs cooking them dinner. Okay, so let me just say that, let me throw that out there so I understand it's hard. And yet at the same time, for so many years, and maybe some of you guys can relate to this, I held such a grudge against my parents because they tried to raise me, right? You know, they tried to teach me those simple lessons, faith, hope, love. Their behaviors were different though, you know? When you're right there in person with folks, it's so easy to lose grace for the people that are closest to you. It's so easy to forget that those folks are giving you grace and how much they have given you. And I definitely lost sight of this, especially when I was reaching for that brass ring at the end of a stage somewhere. But I had a lot of fun while doing it. I thought I was having fun. So like 6 years, I'm 18 years old. Again, remember, I'm 18, I'm contemplating this, and I'm going rock star lifestyle. And rock star lifestyle is whatever. I mean, it's you're going and you're playing a lot of shows. You're showing up at venues way early, loading in gear. You have to stay there way late to load out your gear. You have to haggle for your pay if you ever even get paid. Okay, let me tell you a story, and this is real. I'm 17 years old. I can't even drink. I can't even go into the bar yet because we're playing at a bar. It's a Thursday night or like a Tuesday night. The day after the Chappelle Show would show in 2002, figure that out. But it's a school night. It's a school night for me as a child. And since it's a school night, we're standing outside. We can't go inside. And there's a person who's telling us this story about the first concert they ever went to. They were 12 years old, took acid, heavy metal show. Someone jumped off the balcony of a stadium, like craziness, while he's sitting there holding a pouch of crack rocks and just fiddling with it. And then at the end of his story, he's like, hey, you guys, you want to dig into some of this? And I'm like, no, I got homework. Like, when I'm done with this show, I got to go to school tomorrow. Like, I can't be doing crap. Like, what was that? And why were my parents not, what? Because it was part of our life. It was just normalized, you know? This was part of a normal thing for me. It didn't feel like it was something out of the ordinary. It just felt like it was different to people who were regular, because I wanted to be unique and I wanted to be special. And so up into my early 20s, I played that rock music and that heavy metal. I got deeper into that party lifestyle because I thought if I can increase the party, it'll increase the street cred and the reputation, and it'll increase our band's popularity, forgetting that you got to play music that's good. You got to write music for people. You have to do more to engage. It's a business as much as it is just a musical fun venture to do. I didn't know about that whole business side of it. As much as producers and, the president of companies and all these people, advisors, my own dad who's been in the music industry for decades at that point and played with Grammy-nominated bands and all this kind of stuff. Like, none of that would take root for me because I was looking for something else. I was looking for me. I was looking for my own God, for me to be the God, for me to be your idol. I was falling into the trap that this world offers us, which is, if you eat from this tree, you'll be like God. Doesn't that sound good? It'll make you wise. You'll learn about the world, all these things. No, don't worry about that death. You won't surely die. I've been in so many sketchy situations, this country and abroad, that I should have died, and somehow God kept me alive. What's fascinating is in all my travels, I would take my Bible with me that I got on April 5th, 1991, because it was written there in my Bible. My mom had written it. From Mom, April 5, 1991, and here you go, your first NIV with red letters. And I would take that with me to like every single city I would go to. Every time I would get out of the country, it'd be in my bag, every single time. But it was more like a what do you call those things that they wear, the mariners, an albatross or whatever they call it, where it's like an amulet, like a good luck charm. You know what I mean? And I just took it with me, and then there'd be times where I'd be going through something, and the band is doing it this way, and so then I'd go and I'd like open it up to Isaiah. I'm in the Bible, and I think God was speaking just to me for this, so. And then they don't care, like no one cared. And then I'd be like all even more lost because it wouldn't provide any answers. And what's going on here? What is this spiritual life and what is my life, And I get to a point where I'm just so confused. I don't even know it. I didn't even know I was so confused, but I was, because I was trying to reach for two things at one time, for who I truly am, who God truly is, and how he could be in me, and the whole entire world. And I'm sorry, but you can't have both. You just can't. You can dwell in this world. You can prosper in this world. You can all those things in this world with God by your side. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it happens, and it has happened. I mean, Lot is a prime example of that. Lot and Job, those three-lettered names. Just remember those two folks if you want to see about how prosperity works in a worldly way and a godly way. And you can really get into that so deeply and so heavily. And I learned at that young age, while I'm coming to the end of a time in my life, the end of this sort of fantasy about what rock stardom is, and I'm getting into the real nitty-gritty and the fact that you don't just get picked up with a record deal because somebody comes, sees you, and you're just this special. No, you have to have a lot of determination. You have to work really, really, really hard for it, because there's a billion other people who are trying to do the same exact thing, and they're also working really hard and harder than you. And hey, they can write the hook. They can do all these things. And I come to a point where within a year, I was on tour in 2007. Where we went and played a festival in Germany, and then did some backpacking with friends and ran with the Bulls in Pamplona, Spain, and all that kind of crazy wild stuff that you do when you're 23 or 22. And while I'm on that trip, all I wanted to do, like I got homesick, and all I wanted to do was go home and play my bass and pet my puppy dog Sheba. And while I was on that trip, my puppy dog Sheba died. And so I get home, and I'm just devastated. It's the first person close to me who had died. My grandfather had passed away just after my birthday a few years prior, but we weren't super close. And it crushed me. It did something to my brain. It made me understand what death is like, how something you love so, so much can go away and never come back. And I never got to say goodbye, And I remember the tone in the voice of my parent or my mom when she told me. And it was just did something. And then no more than a year later, my grandmother, shortly again after my birthday, passed away. And she was like the rock solid person in my life. She was the one person who I could turn to, and my parents I couldn't trust them, or the world was falling apart. She'd bring me in, she'd make me some eggs and toast, just simple things, and just calm me down and put me to work in a backyard or doing something to make a few extra dollars. And she was that sage person, had all the wisdom. She had been through a divorce. She had been through the feminist movement. She had been through World War II. She had been through so many things, just a rich life. And she taught me all of these things. She taught me how to speak to people. She taught me candor. She taught me logic. She taught me so many of the world's wisdom that you would think God would want to show you, but she didn't. She wasn't a believer. She kind of had an Eastern belief type of a thing. And when she died, she was like, she didn't want Jesus in the room. She didn't want Buddha in the room. She just wanted family, like, and it was like one of these things that just teaches you how to be a human. And when she passed away, it was the hardest time because I now had no foundation. I had no groundation, and I just went wild for like 6 months. Entered Nashville in September 2000 and whatever, and I'm dying on a bed because I've drinking myself into alcohol poisoning. I am stressed myself into not understanding or knowing who I am, losing myself to the world, flat out. It can happen, and you're looking at it. And I just reach out to God. My arms are open. My soul is laid bare. I had nothing. I was poor. I was broke. Nobody liked me because I had been a jerk for a really long time. I became the image of my God. I became the image of me. And then I just stopped because I asked God, if you take me now, I'm yours. And yes, I maybe drank a couple times after that, and it was worse than that time, horrible. But then things started turning around for my life. I stopped drinking altogether. I've not drinking for a really long time. I stopped going to parties. I started rock climbing. I started riding a bicycle. I was still playing music. We went on a tour to Canada, and it was on that tour that, this is like 2009, it's on this tour that I'm speaking to the lead singer of a band called Dope. So God works in mysterious ways, okay? Let me just break this down for a second. If you don't know the story of Balaam, where Balaam's like supposed to be this prophet of God, supposed to be doing the will of God, but then he goes this whole other way of Balak, and they call it out later on and towards the end of the Bible, and it's like, you can't go this way. You need to go God. If he's gonna send you that way, go that way. It's gonna make a lot more sense for your life. Otherwise, you're not gonna give the right prophecies, you're not gonna say the right messages, and at the very end of it, maybe even a donkey is going to show you the way. And while I'm not calling this person a donkey, there was somebody who's the lead singer of this one particular band. We're on the back of the tour bus in Spokane, Washington, and he's like breaking down. He's basically trying to convince me not to be in the music industry. And I'm like, why? Like, this is your livelihood. What are you doing? Like, are you competing with me? Are you trying to get me not to? Because I know we were showing him up every night. Like, we'd show up on stage and we'd be like, yeah, we just rocked him out. Like, you can see this, that, like what, like had this whole ego about it. And yet he was trying to tell me what nonsense it was and like, what am I really there for? And it was like this last little cry to me of like, hey, go check yourself. So another 6 months go, it's March, it's exactly the same time frame. Another 5 months or so goes by, and I'm just thinking about that over and over again. And I'm like, I don't want this. I don't need this. I like music, I love this, but I don't need this. And there's gotta be a better way. There's gotta be a way that's righteous where I can do this, but not do this. And sure enough, I leave the band. I just walked away. I didn't know what my future was gonna hold. I was gonna maybe go to college. I didn't know whether or not I was gonna work. I didn't know what I was gonna do. And then God starts making a way. It's like I go to a year of college. I start dating this girl there who is really cute and nice and fun, but she was kind of a little bit on the party side. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like way too over that now, I'm just thinking, I'm all like, yeah, no. And it was one of the worst mistakes in my life because the day that we broke up, because I eventually broke up with her, and the day that we broke up, like, I'm walking away from her, and I'm just like, yeah, like, I'm never gonna see her again. Like, I gotta do me. I'm gonna go back into music, and I'm gonna make this all happen, because I have a friend who just was number 4 on American Idol, and like, I'm gonna go back and join his band and go to LA, and yeah, like, the world wanted to pull me right back in about a year after I'd gotten out and tried this college thing, and I'm like, nah, music, man, it's a sign, another sign. And so I break up with her, and the day we break up, I'm walking away from her, and I'm like, something starts happening in my guts, and I'm like, what are you? And I think it's called love or something. And I'm just like, and then it like leaks out of my eye. And this is Eugene, and I'm from California, so I'm not used to all this rain stuff. So it leaks, and then a raindrop hits me on the head, and I'm like, oh no. And then that makes me like angry because it's raining, and then the anger makes me cry more, and then she's not with me anymore, but I broke up with her. I'm so stupid, and then I'm crying, and then it's raining, and then I get on my bike, and then it's raining harder, and I'm like angry, and the wind hits me from the front, and the rain from the top, and the sadness from the back, and I'm just like, what is happening, God? Like, why are you doing this to me? And like, no answer. Spend that summer homeless, trying to find a job, trying to find something with my life because the whole music thing did not work out. because I left that world for a reason. And I tried to go back, and it wasn't happening. And so sure enough, I'm kind of in this limbo state. I'm gonna try to keep going to college, or I'm not, or I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life at this point. I'm just totally like, who am I? And that's when I find an evangelistic series from this guy named Doug Batchelor. If you haven't seen him before, he has a very tough horseshoe hairstyle. You'll recognize him the moment you see him. He talks about it all the time. Great evangelist, great pastor, great teacher. And he got me to question again, for reals, these things in the Bible that I'd put off for like over a decade. I was just over it. I went into the rock star life and I just got done. And when I came back to it, it was so intriguing and it made so much more sense for my life. And I just was like, oh, this is just basic. Like, this is explaining things. Because I was doing it prayerfully. I was just like, God, just show me, or not, whatever. And sure enough, he just starts showing me. And I'm like, let me go get baptized. And I go get baptized. And then I start going to the church more. And then they start saying, hey, go to the Doug Batchelor AFCO, Amazing Facts Center of Evangelism. And I'm like, I'll try that. I got nothing else going on right now. I'm doing some massage. Like, I'm just living the Santa Cruz whatever lifestyle, you know? And I go and I do this 4-month program of evangelism and learning how to preach and teach and study the Bible, learning how to reach out to people, learning how to communicate with people who are nothing like me. And I mean, I had done that in the world, but I hadn't done it for the purposes of trying to teach them about God. And I barely knew about God myself. Then they sent me to the Dominican Republic, so I had to do it in Spanish. It was so interesting, but hard. Because when you're trying to be spiritual yourself, you want to give your message and you want to show how God is changing your life, but how do you quantify the human genome of change? All you can do is just say what it's done to bless you. That's it. And if we don't, even the rocks would cry that out. And if you've ever been to Yosemite, you can see them crying out the blessings of God and the majesty that he has to offer. And so with things like that, I started seeing the world differently. I started seeing the majesty of God in the world around me, instead of seeing how it's all darkness and how this world is such a dark and depressing place. And then slowly but surely, I actually right after that became a Bible worker. So, I was having to figure out how to tell people more about the idea of God. And I think God did this for me for a reason, because I wouldn't do this if I didn't have some motivation to like give and serve others. And sure enough, like it took about 2 years, I worked about 2 years for the church, and I just was doing Bible working, and my life was so different from just a few years before. A few years before, I'm just party rock star. Now I'm just sitting in people's living rooms and drinking very interesting tea, and like a different kind of tea than from before. And I'm learning that the nature of God is in connection and in communication. The Bible doesn't begin with a big bang. It begins with a big God. And he can do that transformative work at any point in time in our lives if we just open ourselves to him. And from that point on, we're talking like over a decade now, I've just been connecting with him and just trying to understand him, whether it's through the community like this, through my wife and my daughter, through the strange experiences you have where life all seems to line up and it just more or less directs you back to his goodness. Because there was this time where that girl who I broke up with, we connected again about a little more than a year after, and I just asked her if she wanted to do Bible studies, because I knew she was like all worldly and stuff, you know what I mean? And I was like, she needs Jesus. But hey, I was trying. I didn't know, but I was like, yeah, she didn't have Jesus. She had like one of those like kind of like fake beliefs. I was all judgy. But God can even use a donkey like me. He can even use a donkey like me. And so we started doing Bible studies together. And then feelings. And then we said we loved each other. And more feelings. And then we got engaged on a mountaintop in Vietnam after going to a theme park, because obviously theme parks are part of my life. And now she bore my child, and she is my partner and the love that I was seeking this whole time in the world. And I can see what generations mean to God through the look of my daughter's face. Like Enoch, when he walked with God for 60 years, had Methuselah, walked with him for 300 and was translated. Because it doesn't matter what has happened to myself in my life. I've proliferated in a career. I've gotten a degree. I've gotten to an understanding about my disability and my trauma, and I'm overcoming every day. And not overcoming some days, but it's still okay because I'm with my God. And all we do is just get better and better. And the way that we see how much better God gets is by ourselves surrendering and just saying, I've tried me, but you're the true God, the one of heaven, the one that the 24 elders, the living creatures, the 10,000s on 10,000s will always say, glory, glory, glory to God in the highest. And it becomes just so much better day by day and moment by moment. You'll have to forgive me, this isn't my guitar. So I gotta get used to it every time. To entertain the emptiness, a meditation that's supposed to fix this mess. I tried loving myself, nobody cared and everybody's shallow. Memories from a dark inner palace I can't even think about. I just hope you'll understand. Given everything, I will be coming home soon. I just wanna be on top of the world. Makes me coming in last. Given everything in my past, I know I can be better for me, better for you too. Better for me, better for you too. Better for me, better for you. I know the water's gonna freeze away the pain in me. I wanna go under, buried deep beneath the sinful grave. Up from the bottom, back to the world, I'm not the same. Keep those petty little hands in a line. Oh, did you ever leave? I say never. Jonah, did you ever wanna run away? Jonah, could you see it any other way? Given everything, I will be coming home soon. I just wanna be on top of the world. Feels like coming in last. Given everything in my past, I know I can be better for me, better for you too. Better for me, better for you. Better for me, better for you. Every day, I live for God. I try to make it that his life is an expression through me, or not his story, because God doesn't have a story. Every good story has a beginning, middle, and an end. But God has no beginning or end. He just has a middle. He's just God. But our stories do have those beginning, middles, and end. And yet there's something, like it says, he's put eternity in our hearts. We don't know the beginning from the end, but he's put that eternity in our hearts. You know, you can literally go online and search my life. You know, we're getting in that age where you can see my past. You can see, I'm like just at the point where you don't see all the embarrassing stuff. And I chose not to show visuals for this group of folks right here who might get encouraged to jump off of second stories of hotels into boxes. Don't do it, because it might hurt really bad one time. But you can see all of that. You can see how the changes happen. And I think about it all the time. I literally work in change management. I spend my life looking at what Chris spoke about 2 weeks ago, the Kubler-Ross curve of grief. That's the same curve that's used for measuring change in your life. So if you wonder why it's so hard to change, it's because you're feeling like you're dying. Because you're literally having to dissolve what you feel is rational, real, right, everything to be able to accept something new. And it's not easy. And that's why we need God. I don't know if my story can be encouraging to you today, but I'd love to share a journey and a relationship with you. I'd love to understand more about who you are. And I'd love to share more of myself, and I'd love to share more of God with each and every one of you, whether here, local, or in Arizona for some reason, California, they always say, or just at home here in the Portland metro area. I'd love to share that with you forever. If you open up your heart and your arms to God, we can make that happen. Thank you so much for listening. Please join me in a word of prayer. Our gracious God and Father, Lord, we can only come to you. You do everything else. You're the one who wraps us in your love, who shows us who you are, who gets us out of ourselves and the idolatry that we would love to indulge in order to understand who and what life really is, so that we can live it with virtue and into eternity. I just pray, God, here that today a simple story could encourage a life or lives to come closer to you. I pray, God, that you would shed your grace on the folks here and myself, that we would be able to share this light with the world as it's getting dimmer and dimmer. Thank you, dearest God, for the promises you give and the Christ who lives in us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Isaiah. I'm a little embarrassed to play this guitar now. I didn't know it could sound like that. I think this last song that we're going to sing for closing is called I Surrender. I think it speaks for itself after listening to that testimony. So let's all stand and sing our closing song here.
Mercy and grace. to know you more. I want to know you more. I surrender. I surrender. I want to know you more. I want to know you more. Happy Sabbath.
All right, you may be seated. Just a quick announcement before we let you guys go as we continue this fellowship over potluck. The first is if you'd like to give online at Alex, our app is on the street. If you don't have it, or if you don't have Reoccurring Stage, which is really the life hack to have for this, you can scan this QR code. It'll take you to our page where you can give either to Rock Fund, which is our local operating budget, or to Tithe, which goes to our local conferences. Again, if you don't have the app or if you don't have the website, you can scan this QR code and it'll take you to our church, which is Oregon Central Korean Church. Our next announcement is that we have a Rock Kids Field Day August 14th, which is a Sunday. So on Sunday, August 14th, we'll be meeting. I believe you can just park here, but we'll be meeting in this field right here for some fellowship, some games, food, and hanging out, get to know each other. So if you're in Rock Kids, August 14th is the date you want to know. If you are in Rock Youth, we don't have a slide for this, but this evening we have a game night. We've had a few weeks off because of camp meeting, all this other crazy stuff. But tonight at 7 p.m. we have a game night here in the chapel. We'll have a trivia game night so you can join us and flex your Bible knowledge and all this stuff like that. So we're hanging out 7 p.m. here at church for the youth. August 14th, Rock Kids in the field across on Sunday. Other than that, I'll invite you to join us for potluck. If you're new here, you go down the hall, the double doors on your left. You can join us for community and fellowship. If you're joining us online, thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next week. Happy Sabbath.